Hello and welcome. Today we are in the Tier 9 US battleship, the Minnesota. Look at the size of this ship, look at how wide she is, and look at these turrets. Look at how long the gun barrels are. Damn. Anyway, the Minnesota is the newest, I guess, super dreadnought US battleship type. She is very much like the Colorado, except well, bigger in virtually every sense. Now, this also means that she inherits quite a few of the negative characteristics of the Colorado. First and foremost, she is slow. We're talking 24 knots. She is the slowest of the high-tier battleships in the game right now, barring of course some of the other super dreadnoughts, which I'm kind of unfamiliar with the speed of. But the Minnesota does come with a 700 meter turning circle, which is actually quite excellent. She does also have fairly decent rudder shift at around 16-ish seconds. It's not like amazing levels, like Thunder for example, but it's pretty up there, and combine this with the 700 meter turning circle and she ends up being quite nimble. I mean, compare that to the Kremlin's 1090 meter turning circle, or the Montana's 950 meters. The Minnesota is pretty good at dodging things like torpedoes or even sometimes shells, especially when you combine it with something like the propulsion mod and go from a standstill. It can catch people off guard, especially considering her size. Something else she has going for her is that she has pretty decent anti-air, and she gets a defensive fire to boot. Now, I don't know how survivable these anti-air guns are going to be. Perhaps you take like one Conqueror salvo and half your anti-air is dead? I don't know, because I simply haven't experienced that yet. Also, I'd like to mention that this is literally my very first game in the Minnesota. I had never played this ship before. I hadn't even looked at the stats of the ship. So what you're seeing is me simply exploring the ship for the very first time. Now, in terms of firepower, she does bring 12 406mm caliber guns. 12. They come with a rather hefty downside though, a 40-second reload. Yes, you heard that right, 40-second reload. 10 seconds longer than half a minute. Some battleships get to fire almost twice in the time that the Minnesota gets to fire once. Of course, Minnesota also fires twice the amount of shells as some other battleships do. Now, I hear you. People are going to complain a lot about this 40-second reload. But I don't think it's actually that bad, because what tends to matter is the damage per minute number. And the damage per minute number on the Minnesota is okay, it's around 230k for AP, which is only slightly less than the Iowa. However, what you do gain is you get more alpha damage, so you can hit harder in one single strike. So I don't think the 40-second reload is actually that bad. Especially because this does come with some upsides. For example, right now I am unspotted, because once you fire your guns, once 20 seconds pass, your concealment returns to normal levels. So if you fire only once every 40 seconds, the amount of time that you stay concealed, provided of course that you're far away enough, is 20 seconds after during the reload. Whereas on a ship with a 30-second reload, it would only be 10 seconds. And this is actually something of an advantage, something people probably don't consider too often. But I think in battleship duels, this can make quite a difference. Imagine you're dueling an Iowa, and the Iowa is spotted by some ship or plane or whatever. But the Iowa can't spot you. When you fire your guns at the Iowa spots you and can fire in return, right? However, then 20 seconds pass and you fall into concealment. Now, Iowa is going to be ready to fire again in 10 seconds, but she can't fire until you fire again, which would give you the damage per minute advantage, because she can't, fire her guns at the speed that she would like to fire them. However, the Minnesota comes with another massive downside, and that is her AP penetration is rather limited. She has the same AP penetration as the Colorado, which is a good 100mm less than the Iowa, for example. Which just kinda confuses me. I simply don't understand why this is the case. She's only marginally better at penetrating ships than a Bismarck, and at medium ranges, she actually loses to ships like the Richelieu and the Alsace in AP penetration. We're talking ships with 380mm caliber guns. I simply don't understand that one. This will definitely make a difference at medium ranges when you're fighting ships like, I don't know, Kremlin, right? Because what might end up being a Citadel hit on something like an Iowa, which isn't exactly known to be an amazing AP penetration monster, right? Something that might be a Citadel hit on a Kremlin by an Iowa is probably going to be a shatter on the Minnesota, and I don't understand why that's the case. You would think that a platform that's slow, lumbering, and hits hard would also have a lot of penetration behind it. And to make matters worse, Minnesota's Sigma is actually worse than the Iowa's Sigma as well, or at least that's what the World of Warships fitting tool tells me, which is actually a really awesome website. You should check it out. It allows you to compare the stats of ships for things like artillery. In terms of dispersion, they should be about the same though. So, I don't know. In terms of the punch that the Minnesota can deliver against ships like cruisers, or more lightly armored battleships, she's amazing. But when it comes to actually hitting those big, strong battleships, I'm talking actually very well armored battleships, I think Minnesota is going to suffer a little bit. Anyway, she is very good at dodging torps, which I'm going to demonstrate right now. As this is my first game, I'm being somewhat cautious, and I decided to play in a more central role. You see, I knew the ship was going to be slow, and I've played the Colorado before, so I figured that I would start by playing the game in a position where I could go on either side of the map. I mean, the Minnesota does have decent range, and then because we're talking about a US battleship, she gets the option to put the range upgrade into the, I think, second or third slot. You know, something the other battleships can't do. As a result, you can get 27-kilometer range, and because the anti-air is pretty good, I also took a scout plane, so if necessary, I can fire at the CV, if she suddenly appears, of course, and it makes sense to try to take the shot. I do have to keep in mind that the shells are fairly slow though, but that does come with experience, so I'm not really too worried about it. Anyway, we're gonna be able to take the sea cap. By the way, I was actually unspotted because there's a storm between me and Yamagi. Or at least that's what it appeared to be. I'm actually kind of surprised that this worked. Regardless, she does have one pretty awesome upside though, which is an underwater citadel. Yeah, she is big and her broadside is fairly flat, so you will get lots of penetrating hits. It'll be even better than shooting the broadside of a Grossa Kurfürst. At least that's what I think. I haven't really met too many of them in game. However, you're probably not going to citadel her too often. And so, when you're playing the Minnesota, you can take advantage of that. You can be broadside on. Also, I can barely see that Donskoy. It's pretty interesting, but I don't really mind it. I mean, we still managed to sink her.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
Against cruisers, she's pretty damn good. However, she can't overmatch 30mm, which means that I think when you're playing against many tier 10 cruisers, you would probably be better served with something like a Georgia or something else that can overmatch that kind of armor better. Because I think Minnesota is definitely going to struggle there. And I think slowness is actually a bigger disadvantage than many people think, because when you're slow, you have to take this into account when you position. And this does mean that sometimes you will have to take more dangerous positions than you would have to on a faster battleship. However, the slowness isn't like the end of the world. I mean, you have to understand though that while she might be slow, she's only like 20% slower than a Yamato, right? Which means that it's not that bad when it comes to going from one objective to the other, or one side of the map to the other. However, it does make a huge difference when you're dealing with things like maneuvering in combat, to be able to dodge the shells enemies fire better and all of those kinds of things. Okay, I launched the plane here because the Yamagi was obviously going to come around the island and I wanted to see that. Oh, there she is. Can I get the citadels, please? One citadel, please. Apparently not. 6 penetrations, 3 over penetrations, but no citadels. I don't know if I simply shot at the wrong place here, or if the Minnesota just is incapable of doing this. I don't know, because again, this is my very first game in this ship. I hadn't even played her in testing, I believe. Or maybe like one match. So, this is a fairly new experience to me. I really thought I was gonna sink that Amagi there in that one salvo, but alas. Although I think the Amagi thought she was gonna sink me in that one salvo too, but I knew that wasn't going to happen because of the underwater citadel. If I didn't have an underwater citadel, I would never have engaged in such a maneuver. Now, if you're thinking that maybe the ship has great secondaries, then you would be mistaken. From what I understand, she actually has fewer secondaries than many of the other faster US battleships, but it doesn't really matter, because you're so slow that you're not going to get into secondary range anyway. And if you had decent secondaries, everyone would just keep outside of your secondary range, so that would be completely irrelevant regardless. Her turret traverse seems pretty decent. At least it's not glacial like you expect on some of the other dreadnoughts that we have in the game, or super dreadnoughts, or whatever you would like to call them. Also, she does have American AP shells, or at least what feel like American AP shells. That is to say, they can arc somewhat decently over islands, but I'm not entirely sure how well that works. So overall, I don't think I like this style of ships. I mean, I never liked the Colorado. It's just too slow for my taste, and I think it leads to somewhat boring-ish games. However, here, in this first game, things have worked just fine. I mean, I'm at 143k damage, and we're handily winning, but then again, I wasn't really focus fired. I was always on the winning side that was pushing, right? I had allies with me, and usually it was somebody else that tanked, despite the fact that I've lost a lot of my HP, but I was never like focus fired intensely, which is certainly going to happen at some point, and I think Minnesota is actually going to be one of the worst ships to try to disengage there. Maybe one upside is that she ends up being better against CVs. I don't know, I guess we'll have to see. But so far, I've actually had more fun than I anticipated. I actually dreaded playing these ships because I thought it was just going to feel horrible. But honestly, has felt better than I thought it was going to. Okay, there's only the CV left. Come on, can we sink her please? That would be amazing. I don't really mind if Shokoku attacks me. At this point, that would just be better adrenaline rush. Okay, she's broadside-ish, but I don't know how much lead I need to give here. Come on. Come on. Okay, 14k. No citadels though. 1 torpedo protection hit. Huh, interesting. Now, I am not using Halsey on her, although many people have actually asked me if I did. I don't think the special captain is going to make a huge difference, and I think he's gonna be better served than other ships. Come on! I guess she's gonna go down to that. Yep, there she goes. But hey, we had a pretty decent first game. 184k damage. I mean, can you ask for more in a slow ship like this one? I think maybe not that much. So, overall, my first impression of the ship is that, she feels okay. I'm kind of baffled by some of the choices Wargaming has made. I don't understand the lack of AP penetration. You would really think that this ship would actually have more AP penetration than her competitors, but that isn't the case. I mean, I get it that she has a heavy broadside, like she can hit like a truck, but you also have to understand that she has a worse Sigma, and she has that very long reload, and on top of everything else, she's also slow, which means that you can't get into as advantageous positions as you can with many other battleships. Like if you compare this ship to the Georgia, I get it, Georgia might not have the tankiness of this ship, but she is so fast that she can get into much better positions than this ship can. And I'm saying this as somebody who hasn't really done that well in the Georgia. I think it's because she is too fast for my playstyle. maybe a ship like this is actually perfect for me, because she is so slow that I can't overcommit easily. But let's take a look at her in port, I guess. So here's the commander. I apparently forgot to take Adrenaline Rush. Whoops. Anyway, these are the skills I tried using. So Priority Target, Expert Marksman, Superintendent, Concealment Expert. Then you should take Adrenaline Rush, then Fire Prevention, Jack of all trades, and Expert Loader. I'm not sure if this is the best build. Maybe you want to go for Basics of Survivability instead. But here I took the Damage Control System Modification 2. I think you need one of these two on a battleship. Usually I take either Damage Control or Propulsion. If I take Propulsion, then I take Basics of Survivability. And I think Propulsion actually might be the better choice. That's experience from later games that I had. Because that allows you to accelerate in a way that people simply don't expect from a ship like this. Especially since Expert Loader... Let's put it this way, even when your guns are reloaded, when you swap with Expert Loader, that's 20 seconds. So I use the Dispersion upgrade, Concealment, then Damage Control, then obviously the range, mostly because the other three don't make much sense. Then Damage Control again. I mean, you could think about Turret Traverse, but 38.3 seconds is already kind of good enough. It's not like this is going to make a huge difference anyway. So I think range is probably better. And then I thought about putting Defensive Fire on it, but then again, probably not really worth it. And then Main Arms Modification 1. You could maybe go for the Spotting Aircraft. I don't know how well the turrets survive. But again, you don't really need the range, so who cares really? Overall, I had more fun in her than I thought I was going to have, but still, she's slow. Slow, slow, slow. So I actually had to roll for her like everyone else, right? And I got extremely lucky on this one. Look at this. I rolled 6 times and I got the 1 in 65 chance of getting the battleship. That was some extreme luck. 9 out of 100 people are going to be as lucky as I was on this one. By the way, I don't recommend polling for her, because it just doesn't make sense. It's a tech tree ship, you're going to get her eventually anyway, and she's not exactly like an amazing ship to start out with. So I think you should hold off probably. But later I'll actually have my second game in the Minnesota as a video too. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would like to thank the patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your continued support, and I hope I'll see you guys next time.